Okay, so Sukio replied to me. He said there are two types of citations. There's the ones you're actually using, and the ones you vaguely mention as being related. And you do that to pander to all the people you cite, because people get mad if you don't cite them, which seems ridiculous. They probably just saw the title and threw it in. Which, if that's what they were doing, it was like extra dishonest, because the way they put it in not just as, CX for related discussion, but specifically they put it in after making these three factual claims. They said that the physiological manifestations include, and then they listed three things, and then they give a cite. So expect the cite to have those three things, to actually be a specific site with specific info, and they were just lying. Anyways. He says that a lot of stuff got cited long after it's retracted because people don't investigate the stuff they cite very much. They don't care, they just cite a bunch of stuff because they're supposed to have cites. They just include it to be polite. And he says he believes that civility among scientists is harming the world. We need more angry rivalries, gotchas, and public disgraces over bad science, as opposed to over this guy's stuff, which is exiled research interested in social science and philosophy. There's people who get exiled because they disagree with the mainstream, and he thinks that's bad, but he thinks people should be calling out, errors and shitty work and low quality and stuff more. I thought it was a reasonable response. By the way, the original graph that got retweeted, the reason it was being retweeted had nothing to do with math anxiety, which is the topic of the paper. It was totally just to say, oh look, another paper proved that genes are important. I'm pretty sure that was like the motivation for why it was being, source, genetic factors underlie the association. It was like in the paper title. They're trying to show genes are important. That is what people care about, not math anxiety. And the thing they're doing with genes, it's not new evidence that genes are important as it's presented as. It is, in fact, using standard methods that are well known and have been done a lot of times that always say genes are important if you think those methods are correct. So now let's look into those methods a bit. So the math anxiety paper cited a paper that explains their methods on twin studies. I was going to make a blog post about this. So it begins, the classical twin study is the most popular design in behavioral genetics. So they're saying that the thing that this paper is about is the most popular study design in this field. So that's pretty important. Get the name. Oops. Okay, link. Oh, right. I needed a different link. Anyway. By those people. What the fuck? Okay. In terms of the link, can I use the back button? This has the token in it. Okay, here we go. We'll link to this page, and then if you click on PDF at the bottom, Okay. And we've got a tentative title. This is from 2002, so they've known twin studies don't work, you know, since before this. Anyways, so you scroll down a bit, you got assumptions of the twin method. This was in bold. Bullet point. There. There's also this other one I'm gonna do as well. Oh, we can actually copy their little things. Anyways. I'm just gonna separate the quotes, I think. Because I'm leaving out text. No, but even that is... I'm just not even gonna mention that. Okay, move this over. Move this over. There we go. Anyways. Okay, let's see what they say. Because they say the consequences of violation of these assumptions and how these might be detected will be discussed in a later section. So blah blah blah, statistics. Doesn't matter. Statistics. I only care about their limitation stuff, not their statistics. Because I don't think their statistics are mathematically wrong. Like, that's not the type of criticism I have. Oh, here we go. Checking the assumptions of the twin method. Perfect. Okay, this is one of the ones that I didn't care about because it was statistics related. And I just wasn't going to bother thinking about it because it wasn't my interest. Okay, genotype environment effects. This is the key one. Wait, now they're talking about mating. Okay. Wait, factors other than biological related. Okay, so it's not talking about incest. That's a notable assumption. See, but what they don't exclude here is that if you have worse genes, you die. So that alone would be a sort of mating and would make bacteria have a sort of mating, even if they just mate with whatever's near them. Or wait, bacteria don't even mate, do they? Aren't they? Don't they just divide? Whatever. I'm not going to go into that. But if you have like a alpha wolf that's leader of the pack, that's not random mating. If peacocks mate with the ones with bigger plumages more, that's not random mating, etc. If there's fights over mates, then the stronger animals get mates, and that's not random. Okay, and so the math anxiety paper did not try to do this. Didn't like study the parents of the twins to see whether there was a sort of mating. Which there clearly is in general. I guess the issue is whether there's a sort of mating in relevant traits. But how do they know that? Because they could check if the parents uh, got the same scores on all the math test things or not. But that doesn't tell you whether there's a sort of mating in terms of parenting behavior memes or parenting behaviors, or if they're genetically caused or whatever. If the parents are doing similar like treatment of children, that matters to how the children turn out mathematically. Anyway, so here's like key point. Exposure to environments is not random. Genetic factors influence the probability that individuals will select themselves into. This is not like even close to the whole issue, but maybe they have more points right afterwards. What do they have? Passive G times C correlation. A gene environment interaction. This is actually the one I wanted, I think. Genetic control of sensitivity to the environment. That's not what it is, but okay. Different types of genotypes responding differently to the same environment. Right. Or some genotypes being more sensitive to changes in environment than others. Okay, yes. So for example, if you're tall, you get more encouragement to be a basketball player. That would be this. That is a height genotype responding differently to the same environment, because the basketball encouragement differs based on genes, based on height. Similarly, if people get treated differently based on their skin color, then you would have a gene-environment interaction. And suppose hypothetically that there were genes for being good at math, some specific parts of math or whatever, something related to math. If math teachers who are part of the environment responded differently to the kids who are good or bad at math, then you would have a gene-environment interaction. So there are two possibilities for math. Either there is some genetic involvement in math and teachers respond to it, and so you have gene-environment interaction. Or option B, genes are just irrelevant. Like, those are your two options, but there's no way that genes are just controlling stuff by themselves and math teachers like don't notice or care how well you're doing. Because, like, you know, if there are genes to make you good at math, then you got more of your homework problems right. And then the environment responds by giving you a different grade on your homework. That is a gene environment interaction. It means that you don't get the same homework grades regardless of your genes if genes were actually relevant to your math ability. The example that David Deutsch has used repeatedly is infant smiling. So if there's a gene that makes children smile more while they're an infant only, and then it's irrelevant later in their life, they like take control over their own muscles themselves, and it's based on their ideas later. But for the first 1 year of their life, say, and it could be, 3 months and it wouldn't matter, this gene makes infants smile less or more. Then you would have gene environment interactions because the parents would notice the smiling and think they have a happy child and treat their child differently. And then, all twin studies are invalidated because there were gene environment interactions that had a ongoing effect in how the child was treated by the parent and how they grew up and everything, how they get educated. Okay, an example in psychiatry is that the carcinogenic effect of stressful life events is substantially greater in those that whatever. Okay, GXE interaction implications. Positive interactions will be estimated in E. How do we detect this effect? In practice, it is extremely difficult to detect without explicitly measured environmental indices. Right, and they do not explicitly measure all the environmental indices of parenting behavior. They just, that's too complex. They're not even close to dealing with that. They just don't even try. However, so can lead to a relationship between the sum and absolute difference of twin pair scores. Non-normality and can often be removed by scale transformation. So that must just work in special cases, like it's a math thing, but it's not going to work in all cases at all. And that's fucking it. They don't say how common it is or how much it just ruins like all studies in the field. And then they just conclude when the assumptions are met. The most basic and debated assumption is the equal environment assumption. Really? Okay, I mean, that does seem false. So that's a good reason to question it. but it's not the one of primary interest to me. This is my primary interest, and this one I just thought was so blatantly false that it was worth quoting. You don't need to know anything at all about statistics to know this is false. We do not mate randomly. So they basically have nothing to say about the gene environment interaction problem. Wait, isn't one of the implications that you can think something is under genetic control when it's not? I thought that was the issue. Or the main issue. Okay, anyways. I should do this after. This text editor sucks. I really should switch. Hi everyone. I don't know why the open with dialog takes like 10 seconds to list apps. More than 10 seconds? Okay. I'm gonna edit in Ulysses. Oh, that's interesting, Justin. I didn't know that was a thing. I just canceled and then opened the menu again and it loaded faster the second time. I've noticed that helps sometimes. Wait, why was this? Oh well. I'm gonna look for a timestamp. This is all twins born in England and Wales as well, because what they mean by factors. Okay, so this graph shows the extent to which individual differences in math. Okay, this looks good. Share, start at, copy. A single tilde is used in Ulysses. Oh, it doesn't have my style sheet, that's why. That's okay, it's because it's a markdown file. Okay, so they italics those first three words. Okay, so with the one head thing, if you had two heads, you would get treated differently, but as long as everyone has like the same genes, it doesn't matter. Okay, I will run the terminal command. I'm gonna make an alias for it. Oh, was I supposed to fix the command and change like user to my name? Or domain local, domain system, domain user? No, I think I just leave those alone probably. Anyway, I put this in my profile. Oh, it's too long. Doesn't even fit. I'll split it up. Oh wait, I totally typoed that. There's the first equals needs to be a space. Anyway, fixed it now. Okay, where was I? Why am I beach balling? Okay, well, this blog post seems about done. Oh, what the fuck? Oh, I know what that is. Ulysses sometimes fucks up by using footnotes that don't work on my blog. There's only 4, so I'm just gonna fix them. Oh, 5, whatever. Okay, copy, search. There's a way I could have fixed everything at once, but it would have been more trouble than doing this manually 5 times. Okay, and I will now reply to Sukio. Okay, blogged. Oh, I will throw this in my newsletter quickly. Copy. Alright, that was the first thing I wanted to do. I think it's now email time. Ask more questions, people. Alright, emails. What was that beep? Oh, I think it was this. I think I want to just turn off sounds for Vienna. No banners, no sounds. I don't think I need a notification center, but I'll badge app icon. Okay. I looked at this a little before. I think I was going to reply to it. I find this completely unclear. Okay, so Justin asked the question, and I need Ulysses back. Okay. So you're gonna do f of n equals something. That's your equation. So it's gonna be something like n times n plus 1. That's basically the general idea. So just forget about the first one. So when n is 1, we will get 2. And then the next time we will get 6. It'll be 1 times 2, and then we'll have 2 times 3. Then we'll have 3 times 4, which is too small. So what are the actual patterns? Write them down. So it's 1 times 1. These italics are annoying. I'm just going to switch editors. Okay, so they're 1 times 1, then they are 1 times 2, 2 times 3. This is 4 times 6. And the next one is 6 times 20. Is that what we want? Maybe there's something else. Like, we want more even factors. So like 10 times 12, maybe? And then the next one, it's 6 times more than that, so it's... This one went up by a factor of 5, which is awkward. The 120 went up by a factor of 6. So you got... Wait, this multiplied by 2, then by 3, then by 4, then by 5, then by 6. This is just factorial. It's literally unfact. But if you want it as an equation, the simple way is recursion. Here it is as equations. I don't know if there's a non-recursive way to do factorial. There might be. You could probably look that up. And I mean, like, also non-iterative, like not doing a loop either, but some sort of like clever formula that just gets you the answer based on the input. Oh, I guess that's Justin's point. The problem with viewing it as to bring some food being a modifier and asked is they didn't ask me. That's not what happened. Like, it's not complete. The thing they asked is me to bring some food. It's that whole thing. Oops. This is the one I wanted. I need to sort by from. Wait, what? Oh, sort by subject. Did I watch 13 already? Where's 14? Alright, so this was, need to mark unread. So date received, then subject. Now they'll be in order. Oh yeah, I think I did watch that. Okay, so here we go. I want to try to watch the videos more in sync with looking at the emails.
So I'm testing out my new audio setup. This might be a video that's on the shorter side. I just wanted to make a video and see how it came out, given
Yeah, the background noise seems to be gone, so that's good.
some equipment upgrades that I got. So I might talk about the details more in a later video, but I'm just gonna talk over this email I'm writing for now. More grammar, and what I have up right now is a discussion that has been going on, and it's got some replies in it. And basically, I linked a Stack Exchange discussion.
There's something wrong with the audio. I'm not quite sure what it is, but certain consonant sounds like are sounding a little weird, like there's a little bit of a pop or something.
Where there was some discussion of, what was it, how to break down something like likelihood of me doing this versus, I think it's somewhere further down here. Right, okay, here it is, it's in the purple. Likelihood of me doing this
Like maybe the S sounds don't sound quite right.
versus likelihood of my doing this. And the discussion got a bit sprawling. So what I'm doing down here is I'm trying to sum up sort of the state of the discussion and my thoughts about it, because I was getting a little lost, just keeping track of everything. So I thought I would basically try and keep track more explicitly and all in one place, because it's, you know, I mean, there's a reason people take notes, right? Like if the key pointers are broken up against broken up across, I should say, this big wall of stuff, then that's not as helpful as if it's all, you know, in one place. And often, you know, I'll do that even in some work I do, where it's like there might be 5 or 10 pages of stuff that's kind of boiled down already, but then I'll just take that and make like one sentence for each paragraph or two of stuff that I have to look out for. Just because there's a limit to how much you can hold in your mind at one time, and it's like if you need to refer to stuff, that's fine, but you need to break the stuff down that isn't like active memory at any time into pretty small chunks in order to keep it there. So anyway, these are my notes so far, and I'm still writing them. So we're joining the email writing process in the middle here. I'm not done, but I'll just start talking over these a bit. So I'm going to recap some discussion of the likelihood of me doing this is small, plus some of my own thoughts in order to make sure I'm understanding stuff. So the Stack Exchange Answerer SA, that's what I'm calling the person I quoted earlier. So the Stack Exchange Answerer view, meaning perspective, of me doing this is a prepositional phrase. Oh, you know, I should bring the sentence down. If I'm going to be doing an outline of the discussion. Oh, no, I did. Oh, this is more of an intro thing. So I had some funky stuff with the hotkey getting triggered or something. Anyway, so I say Stack Exchange Answer Review. Of me doing this is a prepositional phrase. The object of is the noun me. Me is modified by the participial phrase doing this, which describes the type of me. Doing this me, so to speak. Eliot's meaning-based criticism of essay view. In the essay view, of me is the primary thing modifying likelihood. But likelihood is something that pertains to the chance of whether
to the chance that something will occur, not to an object like me. Justin's comment. The likelihood of doing this me is small, and notice, so let me just finish the sentence. It doesn't make sense. So notice I've done a sort of replacement. Instead of me doing this, I've reworded it to make clear the theory.
Your voice just like changed a bunch abruptly at some point.
I said theory, and Siri thought I was saying her name. Okay, I mean, that makes sense. They're pretty close. Anyway, so I say it's kind of like if you said the likelihood of him is small or the likelihood of them is small. It's nonsense. If you said the likelihood of him surviving is small or the likelihood of them winning is small, then that'd be fine. So we could read another gerund, and I'm sort of skipping ahead here because that leads you. But we could read another gerund into the sentence along with the doing this me reading. For example, the likelihood of doing this me existing is small. But then we're just reading a gerund back into the sentence to replace the one we read out of the sentence in the first place, which seems silly. And also, this construction, the likelihood of doing this me existing is small, sounds super awkward. So I say Eliot's view. Of me doing this is a prepositional phrase. Me doing this is a gerund phrase serving as the object of the preposition of. Justin's attempt to expand upon Eliot's view. So, subject,
Oh, yeah.
me, verbal, doing, object.
I read this email already.
This. I think that's right. So I'm going to say, to analyze the gerund phrase according to. It's not really expanding on it per se. I'm just sort of, right. So this is interesting. So it analyzed it. And I reply as, right, of a view that I was articulating in other threads. Joe doing this job is a problem. That sounds fine. Joe's doing this job is a problem. That sounds okay, but I guess this is like the 15 grammar video that I've made. Good times. So I wrote an email, and what it says is,
Okay, so these are both about the word that. Justin, maybe you can just tell me did you write like these emails without videoing most of them? Or are there videos for like all the emails that covered? Okay, got it. Well, bums singing with possessive is annoying, would be fine. But I think this is, bums is the subject of singing. You keep focusing on it being an object pronoun. That is not important. Like, case agreement is just a little detail that gets thrown in. According to, like, arbitrary rules, basically. But yeah, I think they're gerund phrases. Let's see. Yeah, that was what I intended. You could also have the apostrophe, and you could also think that this is like a sloppy version where people just left out the apostrophe, which it, easily could be. But while I think it's like uncommon to do this, it seems non-wrong to me. I think this is actually okay. Oh yeah, with the my or the our, those are different. Those are not subjects of scoring. They're modifiers. In spoken speech, the details would be ambiguous, but the meaning of the sentence would be more or less the same. Like, it doesn't matter that much. That's one of the reasons I think that English developed this way. There's a lot of stuff that's ambiguous from a very technical perspective, but the meaning, it doesn't really matter. So I think that's why it's allowed to be ambiguous, is because it doesn't actually cause problems. Yeah, Anne has been doing pretty well at looking at detail stuff. By the way, I see there are now 7 viewers, so hello everyone other than Justin. And you feel free to ask questions on any topic and interrupt what I'm doing. I don't mind switching tasks. The common ambiguity example I see is adverbs that are at the beginning or end of a sentence are ambiguous about whether they modify the sentence or the verb. In general, you can't tell and it doesn't really matter. Yeah, possessive pronoun is a modifier, not a noun. It's a possessive reference adjective or whatever. I think Kate is kind of hostile to what I've been saying with infinitives having subjects. She seems even to doubt that they have objects. Oh yes, gerund clause not gerund clause not gerund phrase. If there's a subject, it's a clause rather than a phrase. If clause means it has a subject and a verb, or I mean, it's technically subject and predicate, but a predicate requires a verb, whether it's finite or not. Yeah, the subjects are like unusual, but I think they make sense to me. They're not used very much. except in very specific cases. They're common after certain verbs, like make him be mad or something like that. But their use in general is not common, and after those specific verbs, you could blame it on the verb instead of saying that verbals can have subjects. But the idea that verbals can't or shouldn't have subjects does not make sense if you understand what they are, because they are just verbs. It's just using verbs in a way where you're not giving all of the usual information. But they're still verbs, so verbs can have subjects. There's no reason they shouldn't be able to. Like, I think Kate wants to see verbals as a special category that's not a verb. But the important thing to know about them, I think, is just that they are, in fact, verbs. It's just when you use a verb in a certain way, the group you get as a result can play different roles. You see that even with finite verbs. A finite clause can be what we think of as like a main clause, or a dependent clause or an independent clause or whatever. But also, you can have a finite clause nested inside a sentence where it's a modifier. We call that a relative clause with a pronoun, with a relative pronoun. When you have that kind of clause, you can have a finite verb in the clause, and it is still not playing the standard role of like a one clause sentence. What a finite clause can be a one clause sentence where it's like a sentence role, but a finite clause also as a whole can be a modifier. When it's a relative pronoun clause, it can function the whole clause as an adjective. Well, if a finite verb clause can function as an adjective, certainly a non-finite one can as well. And it can have a subject while functioning as an adjective. No, they are verbs. Like, primarily they're verbs, and then overall, their role in the sentence, they create a group with some other role in the sentence. Which is also what finite verbs do. There's just like a standard finite verb role in the sentence, or what a normal finite verb group does, like the is here in this sentence. The group as a whole has a role that is not a verb role, it is a finite clause role, or whatever you want to call it. Non-nested finite clause, independent finite clause, whatever. That's the role of the group that is making. And then within that group, it plays the verb role. No, it's not a clause based on whether it can take a subject. It's a clause based on whether it has a subject. I'm going to reply to that. this whole group right here, these 4 words, they have a role which you could call simple sentence or standard finite clause or something else. So the word is within the group has a verb role, and it's also creating a group with some role that is not called like verb. That is how finite verbs work. That's not something special about non-finite verbs. People just take for granted like the sentence existing or meaning or whatever, but like the word is the key word that is creating a sentence grouping or finite clause grouping or whatever. It is the root of the tree if you make a tree diagram of the sentence. According to dependency grammar. There are constituency grammar people who say the root of the tree is like the sentence concept, and then a sentence is constituted by a subject and a predicate. And so they give the subject and the predicate like dual prominence. But I do not agree with that viewpoint. But they do that with everything. Like then within the predicate, they will separate they will say a predicate has a verb phrase which consists of a verb and an object. And so they group together the verb plus the object combined to make the verb phrase or the predicate. And so they don't actually say like what's more important. They just say what components go into what and build up that way. They don't label the verb as like more important than the object either. But it's also the same with modifiers. Like if you have red ball, they would say that's a noun phrase, which is constituted by a modifier and a noun. So they never like have a hierarchy of what's more important than what, as dependency grammar has. I know this other Kate email is related. It's also quite long. I read most of it earlier. This is not what you mean. You mean importing like the exported video, not the ScreenFlow file? Like you have to export because Reaper doesn't read ScreenFlow files. It has its own format. Anyway, yeah. If you could work on the Reaper export part, that was a task I wanted you to work on. I think that could probably be improved because I think Reaper has access to various system built-in like generic library stuff that can be used by other apps like QuickTime, and I know that those libraries are capable of making a properly sized file, so it's probably possible in Reaper to get it to do a better export that doesn't need to be handbraked afterwards. Manually removing silences is pretty quick and not a big deal if you're removing just like the huge gaps only. But if you want to get like the details, then it can take a while. But like, I don't believe that ScreenFlow, for example, implements their own exports. I think they're just using system libraries. Like, I don't think they wrote code for exporting videos or for codecs or whatever. So this is not just marking, it's also reordering, so this is a misleading label. People sang song, but singing wasn't enough. I think Just would benefit from doing regular analysis of this sentence. Not just the questions and the outlining, but also like which words are verbals, which words are prepositions, etc. We'll see how the questions go. Okay. John sang, who else sang? Okay, but I've covered how to do an and question in one of my previous videos like a couple days ago, and I wrote something about it on list in reply to, I think, just or an. You know, in what manner do they sing? What do they sing a song? Which song their song? Which of their songs their favorite one? Yeah, that's fine. Where do they sing on something? Okay, yeah, that's good. That's a reasonable preposition question. On what stage? Which stage of that stage? You should be able to have a question for but. One way you can do it is you can start with but. No, I think there means like the situation, and then seemed, and then what did it seem? This. I think this stuff is the object. That's my first impression. This seems really incomplete. I'm gonna look at another dictionary. See, there can be a noun meaning that place or position, or that point. I think it's sort of like a metaphorical use of that. Very similar to what we do with it sometimes. Like we say it is raining, and we just mean like the situation is raining. Right, I think you cannot have a linking verb with nothing on one end. I think that's always wrong. So I think this is a double reference. What? You can have expletive constructions. What, do you have an example? Like a simple example? What do you think I object to? Anyways, I think this is a double reference. Like, it refers to that, and then that refers to he didn't find any of the key witnesses believable. The most clean way to rewrite it is just he didn't find any of the key witnesses believable. Semicolon. The judge had made that clear. Well, I dropped the sense, but you could then say since that, comma, there seemed to be little or something. There's a lot of stuff mixed together here. It's not a dummy pronoun, it's a reference to the word that. Or I guess you could call it a dummy that allows the that to come afterwards and like fill it in, but yeah. No, that's not a linking verb. That's a mistakes and oversights and misunderstandings exist. It's speaking to their existence. It's an action verb in that case. Oh, well, my chat screen is a Chrome browser window, so that might be affecting what emojis show up. Oh, here we are. The state or condition is a pronoun meaning. Or that state or condition? Yeah. I'm gonna change this. That's weird to say makes heat when you mean the situation is hot. Yeah, I think technically the shall or whatever is the main verb. That came up in some of the dependency grammar trees. So what we call an auxiliary verb or view as a helper verb is sometimes, from a technical grammar perspective, actually the primary verb. That was my takeaway from reading dependency grammar articles in detail before. Later, Alan. That's a big list. I'm gonna put that in my newsletter. Okay, saved it to my newsletter. Okay, this one I think has a video associated with it, so I'm gonna leave it alone for now. Okay, so this were some notes from someone on Discord that I was gonna look at a bit. Related to the Greeks. By the way, I think anyone can view this list. Yeah. Actually, I wouldn't recommend using this list because it doesn't have me on it. I didn't want to list myself. But if you were going to make a minimal list, you could put me on it. But otherwise, it could be similar. We got Patio and Stukio and Justin and Alan. I'm going to delete that at. I don't know what at is being talked about. Oh, I didn't even read your tweet. They were static societies. And they were authoritarian, tyrannical societies with a master at the top who could basically order anyone killed or enslaved or whatever. Like, the Egyptians built the pyramids, and to do that, they worked thousands of people to death. So that's a very relevant thing. So saying it was a supernaturalist culture, I mean, it was, but I don't think that's primary. Like, the masses had no freedom to choose what to be or not be. Like, they were too enslaved anyways. Like, if they had been given freedom, who knows how long they would have stayed house supernaturalist. But the king and the church had power of life and death over them, so they didn't have a choice about it. And they were kept ignorant. The church was like the guardians of knowledge and wisdom, and they knew a few things, and then largely they stopped making progress and didn't let anyone else learn anything, so they would know more than the other people in order to stay in power. I was reading about that just the other day in this book, The Greek Way by Edith Hamilton. Also, I read previously, spelling shit wrong, but I like this book, Greek Ways, How the Greeks Created Western Civilization. Bad news about this one is I don't have an ebook of it. So I actually read a paper book. I think this might be the most recent book I read in paper, because I rarely look at paper. Anyway, this book was good, and this book I've read like 2 chapters, and it was pretty good so far, although not as good. But it was talking about like the slavery and the tyranny and what made Greece different than the East. It was talking about like the giant enslaved masses in the East, the Oriental despots, stuff like that. See, this talking about like they had the same view with regard to ethics. I think that's unfair because there were the masters and the slaves. It's like the people in charge had that view, but the vast majority of people had no choice about it. Like they weren't free to choose a view. So some of them had that view, and I mean they were very indoctrinated and ignorant and stuff, but like they weren't really agents in control of such a thing. They didn't get to like make decisions about that. Yeah, this is fair. Like they're busy being enslaved and dealing with that, not thinking philosophically. Saying they're a monument to death, not life, it's correct, but it's vague. It doesn't explain why. There's multiple ways they were monuments to death. One was working so many people to death, creating them. And another was that they were tombs, and that Egypt in general cared a lot about the afterlife and tombs and stuff like that. Like they paid a lot of attention to it. Saying the culture took religion seriously, like I think that's again a little unfair. The priests were in power. There are other reasons Greek was an exception. Like one that was mentioned in the Greek Ways book, or the Greek Way, is that Greece had mountains. So if you have like plains, there's nowhere to hide from the rulers. If you have mountains, it gives you more opportunity to resist tyranny. It's harder for invading armies, it's harder for people to find you, etc. This is misleading. Like they were also interested in tragedy and they knew a lot of bad things about the world. It was kind of a mixed view. That was also talked about in like the first two chapters of the Greek Way book. So there were elements of them liking life and seeing the world positively, but there were also negative elements. It wasn't just like all hugs and kittens. Which makes sense because they were, you know, mortal and well aware of it. They had much worse technology and much worse safety and so on. Their lives were a lot less stable and reliable than ours. So it'd be very hard for them to forget about tragedy and death and stuff like that. Okay, so Kate's very focused on like parts of speech of individual words, and I don't agree with that. Specificity. There we go. Okay, so I think I got my point across and I don't need to reply to the rest. I think it's basically repetitive. Oh. Oh, I took the wrong sentence. I missed the boss part. Okay. There we go. Okay, I'm done with this. I think we're also getting near the end of the stream, so ask your questions. I wanted to look at this a bit. I was reading some of this. Is there a web link? Oh yeah, here we go. They make some claims about private equity. They're like hostile to capitalism, but I thought it was interesting enough that maybe be worth some consideration. But I think they're like an Elizabeth Warren fan and some other bad stuff. But anyways, they say that private equity gets companies and restructures them to try to make money. And that, okay, so the story of Toys R Us, I think, was what I found notable. I was curious if this was true. So according to this, basically, Toys R Us was still selling toys really well, and they closed down because people bought it and then looted all the money until it fell apart. But people were actually using Toys R Us. It wasn't killed by Walmart or Amazon. That is what this claims. So I don't know if that's true. But it seems like notable and important, and maybe something bad happened if it is true. Not like a refutation of capitalism, but like you can wonder what minimal state mechanisms could prevent such a thing, or if not that, like how could companies protect themselves, or you know, what if something bad happened, like what should actually be done about it. I wouldn't jump to, you know, extensive government regulation as the answer. Like, you know, he says private equity should not exist, so just like ban it. Like ban it on what grounds? Just because the government has arbitrary control over everything? I don't agree with that. But yeah, so Bain took over Toys R Us, got a bunch of debt, spent 90%, 7% of their operating profit on debt service, and kept giving money to Bain, and said they weren't liable for any of the debts of the company or the pensions. Like, that seems like a loophole where they're getting control of it and then operating it in a way to not end up paying out the pensions. That seems fucked up right there. Like, you ought to, if you take over control of it, get the contract obligations of the thing that you're buying. Oh yeah, the Boeing one might have been the same guy. I forgot. I think it was the same guy, probably. But I'm not sure. Anyway, this guy is like a mixed bag. He definitely has some bad ideas, but he could easily be right about some parts. So I found this notable. I've not read the whole article. I think I read maybe more. I don't know. I might have just stopped at that part. Because I didn't know if it was true and I thought I should actually investigate it. About. I think actually I'm not going to investigate it right now. Maybe another time I'll leave it open. Oh yeah, I opened this earlier. I'm gonna look at this article a bit. Actually, this looks pretty long as well.
basically just that I'm making videos, what they're about, what the some issues I've encountered with like silence removal, the software I'm using, yada yada. And I asked for video requests if anybody has them. And so Elliot had a couple of replies to that. I'll bring this up here. And so he requested a video about the word that, and I'm going to try that. Very unambitiously. I'll talk about that in a moment because I was thinking about it. I was like, oh man, that is a huge topic. But I think I figured out a way to at least start a reasonable treatment of that, and maybe we can explore other stuff, other aspects of thatness. But first, I wanted to reply to this. Why did you start making a bunch of videos now but not before? What changed for you? What clicker made it work? What changed your mind? So there's various aspects of like various things I could go into an answer to this question. Some of which I don't really want to talk about, but I can talk about some of it. So I'll try and talk about as much as I feel like I can talk about. First, there was a practical thing, which is that I've discovered Screencast-O-Matic, which has the automatic silence removal. Now I'm still sort of fussing with that to an extent, and I still haven't gotten the results like really great. But the thing is that it's so easy, like it's almost like one step. Like you make the video, you click the button to remove.
Yeah, can you screenshot the Screencast-O-Matic settings? What you were using? Because I mostly want to see what the settings actually are, but also what you used.
The silence and boom. Now the silence removal is not as good as something I've used before, which is Reaper. But I just find the whole Reaper like workflow really annoying. I need something where it's like I make a video and then that's like there's no step two. The only I mean that's not quite true because with even with Screencast-O-Matic, but like the only steps are so I save the video as like an MP4 and then I start uploading it to YouTube and simultaneously I upload it to so this is a site I uploaded to otter.ai. There might have been a bit of a jump cut there because by the way because I just meant to go to like the website, I didn't realize I was still logged in, so I didn't want all that showing up. But so otter.ai, and you basically it's like drag and drop, like you just drop the video file in here when you log in, and it makes a transcript of it. So basically the YouTube processing happens because you have to upload.
It's funny that you commented on that jump cut because you have jump cuts everywhere from your silence removal anyways.
And then YouTube has to process it, and I schedule a time for it to publish based on when I think the file will finish processing for high definition. Because YouTube, if you just let it do the default, like if you just say okay, just like publish it, then it'll send out a notification to all your subscribers when the video is only processed for like I don't know, like 360p or something. So it looks terrible, and especially with a screen video like this, it's useless, it's garbage. So I build in some delay using the scheduling feature, and while all that uploading and processing is happening, I also upload the video file to Otter, and then I get the transcript from Otter. I put it on Pastebin, and I link the transcript in the YouTube description, and everything is like done by the time like by the time the video's ready to go to HD, when you can view in HD, the transcript is done, it's available online. So it's very fast, it's very easy, and there's almost nothing, there's very little like extra steps after making the video itself. And it's fast too, because I kind of want to like pound these out. I don't want to have some big lag. And so the process I was doing before, if I want a silence removal, like basically make the video, make it in like ScreenFlow or whatever, and put it into this Reaper audio editing app, do the silence removal, export that to a very large intermediate file, and then re-encode that in Handbrake, and then upload that to YouTube or whatever. So that's a bit of a more annoying like process stack. It works very well. Like the output is really good because in Reaper you can really fine tune the silence removal stuff. So the quality of the silence removal. When I say silence removal, I mean like automatic, because obviously you can always like edit a video and edit the silences out. That's really annoying. So I try and I try to figure out ways to do that automatically. By the way, if you look online, you'll find pages where people are like, oh.
Reaper, the advantage is not really fine tuning the silence removal. Like I only use the basic settings. What I'm trying to do is pretty simple. I think Reaper just does it correctly, whereas I don't know what Screencast-O-Matic is doing. But the actual thing we want should be really simple. And Audio Hijack has it. And in Audio Hijack, it's literally just like, what decibels counts as silence, and how long of a silence do you want? And then, if there is no audio over the decibel limit for that many seconds, it just stops recording until there's noise again. So it's really basic, but it works great. I hadn't had any problems with it. So Screencast-O-Matic, its problem is not lack of fine tuning. It's either like broken or it's designed stupidly or something. Or you're using it wrong. Like those are the options.
Oh, it's impossible. Just do Final Cut Pro, man. It's like, okay, well, you're useless in giving that advice, but that's aside. So when I say silence removal, I'm talking like automatic silence removal. And so far I figured out two reasonable ways to do that. One is to record videos natively in Screencast-O-Matic, and the other is to record videos anywhere and then import them into Reaper and do that whole stack. But I didn't want to deal with that. I just wanted to, with the Reaper stuff, I just wanted to be able to just, boom, 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 make the video, do the little tiny extra steps, in a few minutes in between doing other stuff at the end after having made the video, and have the video out like that same night. So I found that Screencast-O-Matic is helpful for being able to count them out. So that's one aspect of the answer. There's more, but let me just get at least this part down. So the second part is that I've only recently realized how much sort of thinking things out loud and talking with myself helps in terms of understanding things. And it's kind of like writing stuff down, It's not like writing stuff down is better, but talking out loud is better than just sort of thinking it in your mind, because it's closer to writing it down. It's like you catch more errors. It's almost, it's a different thing, but it's kind of like, when you hear stuff read to you, you notice more certain kinds of errors in like typos and that sort of thing. When you say, it's a different kind of thing, but when you say stuff out loud, you just, you say, oh wait, that doesn't actually make sense, because you're having to commit it to like a specific form. Like even if you're not writing stuff down, still putting things into words is committing it to reality in a way. Like you have to pick certain words, particular words in which to say the thing that you're going to say. And if you have to concretize it like that, if you have to put it out there.
Yeah, so there's a lack of options, but I don't know. If you just put like 3 seconds, what the hell happens? it just leaves you with silences shorter than 3 seconds that it causes. I mean, that just seems broken.
then it makes it more likely that you notice a mistake, as opposed to
You should like make a really simple example. Like, okay, make a test video where you like say something, and then you wait like 5 seconds, and then you say a second thing, and then you wait like 1 second, and then you say a third thing. So just be like 1, 2, 3. You know, make that video, and then try it with different settings in Screencast-O-Matic, and see what the results are. And if you think they're broken, send it to their help people, their support, and see what they say. If it's a bug that they can fix, you know, whatever. Because it would be nice if it worked. And I think they have, I think they're a decent sized company that has some support and whatever. So I think you should talk to them about it if you can make a clear example that's broken. And on the other hand, if your short example actually works correctly, then maybe you could figure out from there how to make it work correctly for longer videos. You would have a better idea of what's going on if you did a small test case.
if something is just sort of kept vaguely in your mind, then it's a lot easier to not see stuff yourself. So another thing is, when I thought about wanting to make videos before, I thought, oh, like maybe I'll try and explain something so that other people can learn stuff, and that sort of put a burden on it, because on the making of the video, it was like, oh, I have to explain stuff to this really high standard so that other people can get something out of it. Whereas these videos are just really for me and for my own understanding, and I would like to understand this particular topic of grammar better. I think it's interesting, and so I have like whereas with some topics I might be like more concerned about whether it's meeting a standard to inform or eliminate other people. With this, it's like the making of the videos is really just for me, for my own.
Oh, did it not have a? Oh, does it not let you set the dB threshold for what counts as silence? Is that the issue? Well, what if you just like turn the volume up, then you run the silence remover, and then you turn the volume back down? Problem solved?
My own goals. And when I've when I make reference to videos that are for educating other people, it's more like I thought of like hypothetical videos I haven't really made. That sort of thing, the stuff I made before was more like you know, the political or inspirational or that sort of thing, which was also for me. Like I made those because I wanted them to exist and because I think they're funny or nice or whatever. So yeah, I guess I figured out something where I love the doing, I guess, as opposed to wanting the secondary consequence of maybe educating other people, which wasn't sufficient motivation to actually get things done. You'll figure, right? That shouldn't really be a surprise for objectivists that would be the case. So me, that's a bit of a ramble, so I'm gonna figure out how I can sum that up coherently. What's going on here? So I basically tried to summarize the stuff that I talked over. I'm going to hold this email for now in case I think of anything else I want to say. I'm going to reply separately to the request, the request for a discussion of that. Or actually, yeah, because I guess I'll just talk about that in the video. Well, do I want to? Do I want to do a written summary? No, I think I'll just talk over it in the video. Okay, so maybe I'll send this then, and then I'll just make this video and link Elliot when it's done and uploaded. I think that makes sense. So I thought about just going through a dictionary regarding that, but I like ThoughtGo. And, you know, the dictionary is just a big list of definitions. This is more.
Okay, so you're now changing topics. Oh, I see. That's who praised the sound change. Oh, you have a table of contents on this one. Yeah, if you want to add shit like this to my videos, my recent streams, like all of them, that would be awesome. I'm happy to pay for that. Like, this is a reasonable level of detail, I think. Even like a bit less than this would be fine. Like, just so people can find like major sections, like this is the part where he's doing Q&A, this is the part where he's watching videos, etc. Alright, cool. Okay, so I was gonna maybe comment on these two comments in particular. I'm gonna... Oh yeah, okay. The audio was better, yeah. The biggest change, I think, was the taking away the background noise. I also don't pay, like, close attention to audio, so I'm not a good person to ask about that. This stuff is so fucked up. The government causing unemployment, homelessness, carlessness. Just taking things away because they're not good enough in some sense, and then people just don't have them and have, like, less or worse. Yeah, so urban renewal. I think I looked at this at some point. And it said, wait, they just like destroyed more homes than they built? So then there were fewer homes. That is what I remember. A dignity certificate? Jesus. You know, in capitalism, there's issues like factory machine renewal, because like new machines come out that are better, and even if they don't, your machines get worn down over time. So there's a question of when should you replace the machines in the factory with updated versions. And intelligent thought actually goes into that. It's not replace everything immediately whenever there's an upgrade. You have to look at cost benefit stuff, and you know there's going to be further upgrades in the future. Maybe you can hold out until the next upgrade. Maybe you should upgrade some of your machines, but not all of them. A common strategy is to mostly get new machines when you need more capacity or when stuff breaks and it's too hard to repair. Also, sometimes it's good to get stuff in large blocks because if you have a bunch of the same machine, then it makes maintenance and repair easier. Like they share spare parts and maintenance expertise. So it can make sense to like buy a bunch of machines, then wait 20 years and then buy like 100 more machines all at once that are all identical. Right, so they did a lot of like causing and creating the inner cities. It's so fucked up. The government just needs to leave shit alone. They break things. They're just Godzilla walking over our cities. Stomp, stomp, stomp. And they call that urban renewal. $60,000 people out of Atlanta because of this. No, this is on like a super left bias site that's like whitewashing it, presumably. Replacement housing has not been successful. They displaced thousands of black people, gave them no replacement housing at the time, and built like Targets and Costco's. A lot of government programs seem to benefit like the middle class. Like, you know, kick out the black people and replace them with places the middle class wants to shop at. That's the government. And that is the left that does these programs. The right would leave people alone more, and if the government leaves people alone more, it won't be doing super racist shit. Not that like race was actually the main factor. Like I think it was more they were being unfair to poor people. I think a lot of stuff that looks racist is actually biased against poor people, which correlates with race. But they should not mistreat poor people. Like that is fucked up too. And if they would just stop meddling in the economy and stop trying to do central planning, then they would stop hurting poor people. Poor people are like less politically represented and have less like influence in the political process and stuff. It's another example is electric car subsidies. Like those are not to help poor people. they're phasing out the subsidies over time too. So basically, by the time poor people buy electric cars, they won't be getting all the subsidies. The subsidies are for middle class people to get electric cars earlier. And it's not just car price subsidies. Like, there's a lot of places with free electricity if you're charging an electric car. Like, there are cities that give that out in various places. So, like, if you're middle class, first the government gives you money to buy an electric car to try to make the price similar to a non-electric car. They're just getting extra stuff that the taxpayer pays for. Then on top of that, they're essentially giving you a bunch of free gas, which is not reasonable, and that's not good for poor people. Like, it's helping the middle class. It's selectively targeted government stuff that the middle class likes. There's a lot of that in general. Yeah, that makes sense with student loans. Shit, Social Security and Medicare, those probably help the middle class more because they live longer. Like, those programs help people with longer life expectancies, which is not the poor. The poor are going to have the lowest life expectancies. That's a huge fucking bias as well. Like, the reason we have so much poverty programs in the big picture is because of the fucking government. They're the ones who are harmful to poor people. People are so worried about, like, the fate of the poor under capitalism that they're, like, blind to how the government is causing so much of that trouble.
Those two strategies. Oh, and the third is to imply. I should write this down. Actually, write down an email. I'm gonna call this Justin's thinking about grammar pro tips, or maybe Justin's pro tips for thinking about grammar. Oh, and I should mark this as grammar. If you are trying to figure out if you are doing grammatical analysis and you are trying to figure out how a word, phrase, clause works or what it means, etc., trying to figure something out, here are 3 techniques.
Oh, this is the wrong video. It was this one I was watching before.
More sort of categorical. And so I thought I'd look at its approach, the critical eye, the ThoughtCo approach, and see if I think it makes sense or have any objections. So that's going to be my treatment of the word that is going to be building off of this ThoughtCo discussion. Oh, and also I'll be making reference to Eliot's grammar treatment. So let's start off. So this says, the word that is a common word in English that is used in many different ways. Did you notice the use of that in the previous sentence? In this case, that was used as a relative pronoun as a complement. Now, that's interesting because that doesn't fit with, well, right, so I'm trying to think of the structure of the sentence. I actually can't decide whether word or that is the subject, or if it's both of them somehow. But in any case, this is a linking verb, and word is a subject complement, and in this case it's a noun. And then we have this prepositional phrase in English, which is describing word, and then that is used in many different ways. Okay, so that is used in many different ways is modifying word. It's not modifying English. Like these are this and this are separate structurally. They're both connected to word independently, I think. So then, yeah, okay, that can fit with how I've seen complement used, I think. Although because this is a subject complement, then this would be like a complement to a complement. Also, I'm not sure. This doesn't seem like the right spelling of complement to me. Yeah, polite expression. Yeah, I think the correct one is C, phrasal category that is combined with the lexical head, or function word to form a larger constituent. Okay, that's.
Yeah, you want complement with an E.
Complement, not the I complement. So I think that's a typo. That's not a big deal, but I just thought it was interesting. So often that can be used or left out of a sentence entirely. For example, many English students know that you can leave out that, depending on the instance. That is true. This guide to the use of that will help you understand when to use the word as well as when it's okay to leave it out. By the way, just an overall comment. Like, I'm not doing my own treatment of that because I thought that seemed like it'd be a bit difficult for the amount of time I wanted to spend on this, but I do think there's value in going through somebody else's treatment quickly. There's also value in making your own treatment, and especially if you're like super confused on stuff. I've had some confusion about that, but I think I typically get the general idea of how it's being used. It's still good to review though, because it's got a lot of stuff to it. It's a word in which there's a lot of weight put in English in terms of the amount of jobs it has to do. So that is a determiner. That is used as a determiner at the beginning of sentences to indicate one object which is far from the speaker, right? As in like this and that. Another plural form of that as a determiner is those. That and those, which are generally used now. Generally used with there to indicate that the object is not close to the speaker. That's my friend Tom over there. That's a pencil you have in your hand. Those paintings are by Cezanne. That is my house on the corner of the street. That is a relative pronoun. That can be used as a relative pronoun. So hang on. So I think this is clear. I don't have any objection. Yeah, I don't have any objection to this category. Although I will say actually now I do have an objection because I was thinking
Like, so this says that's my friend Tom over there, and Webster's third says, as a pronoun, the person, thing, or idea pointed to, mentioned, or understood from the situation. That is my father. That's my friend. That's my father. That's pretty close. And the other thing is, right. So when I think of a determiner usage of that, I'm thinking of like that cake looks delicious. Like a determiner is kind of like an adjective. In fact, they're often traditionally categorized as adjectives, I think, although I guess that's broken down some. But when it's standing for the thing, when it's standing for the substantive noun that's being mentioned.
Oh yeah, that is my friend Tom over there. That refers to Tom. It's not a determiner, it's a pronoun. Yeah, these people are not competent, I think. The use of that as a determiner is like... Oh, they fucked all of them up. It's like that house is green. When you're just blatantly using it as an adjective there.
As opposed to modifying or indicating. Like this pencil. Right, see this is my issue. Those paintings are by Cezanne. That is what I think of as a determiner case. But this seems totally different.
Yeah, this one's correct. The other three are wrong.
Because that is my friend Tom over there. Like what it seems like is, I wonder if it's, I was trying to follow this thought earlier. I wonder if it's the same thing as the expletives, where basically you need a noun here as a subject, like in this place. Like just because English wants a noun there in terms of the syntax or whatever. But it's not really, I see. It's normally a pronoun, because what I want to call it is a pronoun. But a pronoun has an antecedent typically, even if it's elsewhere in like paragraph or whatever, or way earlier. It's still the antecedent by definition.
Yeah, it's a forward reference, so you could call it like a dummy that sets up holds the slot open or like prepares it, and then the words come later. But you could also just call it a forward reference. I haven't thought clearly about the difference between like a dummy word versus a forward reference. But they serve a similar job.
Comes before the pronoun. But when you have this weird case where you have something that's like pronoun, but then it's not where it's like a forward reference, then you can it's like fine, but you can't just do the straightforward, typical standard analysis where you say like that's a subject and yada yada. Like you have to think about it a bit more at least. And so I get why they're calling it a determiner, but I'm not sure I agree. Because they're basically saying like this isn't a normal like subject. And that's true. But I don't know if I agree with determiner either. So since I'm already sort of strenuously objecting from the get-go, rather than organizing my approach around this Stockhouse stuff, I'm just going to use it as examples of like questions to bring up. So like, okay, so I analyzed this example. That's my friend Tom over there. And I built up to analyzing this from a different example. So I'm analyzing it as an expletive in the sense of syntactic expletive. I don't mean like curses. It's a technical grammar term. And the idea is that when you have something like it at the beginning, it is important that you work hard for the exam. That it is just here because English wants a subject at the beginning. You know, pretty much all English sentences follow the thing verbing order. And so even though the it hasn't been introduced, we basically still give it its position. And so it is, in what Eliot's terminology, I guess would be a forward reference. So anyway, that's what syntactic expletives are like. And so likewise, when I see that's my friend Tom over there, I think that's kind of like my friend Tom is over there. That drops out, and because it's not really doing anything, it's just a placeholder, like the it was. And so there's no place for that after you rearrange the sentence. You know, sometimes you can rearrange stuff, especially stuff that involves certain question words or some other words, and like everything still has a place that's sensible. But here there's no place for that. So I think that this is wrong as an example of a determiner use of that, right? So under pronoun, Webster's third has this definition: the one farther away, the one less immediately under observation or discussion. Those are elm trees and these are maples. That is porcelain and this is plastic. And I'm fine with calling this a pronoun. I just don't think it's. I mean, let's look up determiner. Specific denotation of a noun phrase. That's not very helpful. Well, my different perspectives on thought code though. Determiners under the category demonstratives. Now this is really interesting. I find these two examples really interesting because see, when I think of rearranging this sentence, I might put it as John's. That's an adjective. House is this, and so.
Yeah, in this case, I would think that this is standing for a noun. It's not playing an adjective role, so it's not a determiner. Whereas you said like this house is John's, then this would be a determiner that modifies house. Like these apples are mine, those apples are yours. These days, those days, this time, this sugar. All these ones towards the bottom are what I think determiners are, which are adjectives.
That's fine. I have no objection to that. Because this is a linking verb, this is a noun, and then this is basically, you know, in that rearrangement, this would have an antecedent, and it's just describing like the location of the house, like or indicating that the person thinks it's this one over here as opposed to that one over there. So that seems fine to me. To say this is a determiner because it is.
I know, these fucking people are trying to like teach grammar and they don't know what they're doing.
See, so this site, whatever this is, Learn English, is talking about determiners and says they're used in front of nouns to indicate whether you're referring to something specific or of a particular type. An example they give is like these apples, my keys. Whereas if it's standing for a noun, you know, then that's different. Like I don't think determiner always followed by noun is meant to include like after a linking verb. Like, I don't think that's what it means. Now I guess you could read the sentence this way that it's like that Tom is my friend Tom over there, right? But I think that's awkward and
aren't determiners always followed by a noun? Or could it be... No, you could say this red ball, so it'd be followed by an adjective. There's always a noun after them, like, at some point, because they have to modify a noun. Unless you can have a determiner as a post-adjective. I don't know if that's possible. There's always a noun involved, but yeah, you could definitely have multiple adjectives, and the determiner doesn't have to be directly next to the noun.
basically you're just like I would make this a determiner. But we'd be basically engaging in like awkward non-standard repetition of the simple subject and on both sides of the verb just to make this a determiner. So I still say that I think this is like a pronoun. Actually, so now I'm thinking about this example. Well, right, no, it's okay to call it a determiner because an adjective can serve in the complement position of a linking verb. And so determiners are basically adjectives, like a special like subcategory of adjective, like articles are. And you see this actually with articles and determiners. So whatever. It's if they're like that. I mean, you can have an article in that after a linking verb, but that's like if I notice. So in the original sentence, is this John's house? The determiner is followed by a noun. In my rewritten sentence, it's not followed by a noun, but it still conforms to a standard English grammatical pattern. Noun, linking verb, adjective. I think that's fine. So yeah, I just want to look up determiners.
So far I don't like it. That's not the only thing this guy's an idiot. Like, they modify nouns and they give more information about nouns. It's not just they both appear with nouns. They're both giving details about nouns. They add more meaning to the noun. But yes, you need you normally just have like one determiner, or maybe it's always one. You don't just throw them in anyways, but you know, you don't put adjectives in arbitrary orders in random places either. Anyways, but yes, it's a subcategory of adjective that has somewhat different rules than some of the other adjectives. Like there's some difference. Like it's worth having a term for determiner. That's reasonable. But I think it's a type of adjective because it's a thing that modifies a noun and gives more detail about it. Okay, so this guy's smarter. He knows the basics. The first guy didn't seem to understand this. Or he was just being so... I think he was biased. Like, I don't think it's he doesn't know this. I think it was bias. I think he was trying to make as strong a case as he could for his position. So he really, like, exaggerated to try to make a better case. There's, like, the only argument for the other side is this tiny little thing that's so small. And he's just lying. I think it's, like, intentional dishonesty. Because of bias. Wait, can all adjectives be graded? I would think not. Like, you can have the metal desk, but not the metaler desk. Or toy soldier, but not toy-er soldier. I'm going to this because it has types of adjectives. You can have lovelier. You can have smaller. You can have rougher. I guess you could have squarer, rounder, younger, bluer. You cannot have Dutcher. I mean, you sort of could. Like, you could sort of have metaler as well. You'd be like, this desk is metaler than that one because it's made of like 90% metal instead of 80%. And you could have like Dutcher, like the person is more Dutch-like, I guess. But like basically you don't use the ER, the gradation things with Dutch or metal. Similar general purpose. You could sort of have general purposer and general purposist. U-shaped-er. Like more U-shaped. Like it's very awkward with this type of adjective. Oh, a hammering tool. A hammeringer tool. Hammeringer. A cookinger. Yeah, so I don't think it works with all the adjectives. Right, some adjectives are like binary, like it's for cooking or not for cooking when you're talking about that kind of category. Like deli sandwich would be another one where deli would not take a ER. Because you're talking about a binary issue. Is the sandwich from the deli or not? That's what these things are. They're binary. Is it general purpose or not? Is it wood or not? Is it Japanese or not? Is it for cleaning or not? They're not dealing with continuums. Whereas these ones are dealing with continuums. They don't have to be. Like, you can talk about red in a binary way, like it's either red or not red. You can also deal with red on a continuum of different shades of color. It's the same with like all of these. You can talk about any of them in a binary way, I think. Like you can have big and non-big as categories that you're talking about, or usual and unusual. But you can also talk about bigger. Like these ones can deal with a continuum and it's common, whereas these ones, like, it's very awkward for them to deal with a continuum. Although in some of the cases it's still like technically possible, like a more Japanese thing.
And Webster's third says, the word belonging to a group of limiting noun modifiers. That English consists of, and it's a big list and includes that and this, possessive adjectives and possessive case forms, and is characterized by occurrence before descriptive adjectives modifying the same noun as that in that big yellow house. So this that comports with my adjective view, right? This American Heritage 4, which I found pretty good, also says it's a noun modifier. So a noun modifier can't be a noun. Okay. So initially I thought I was gonna have a problem with the rewriting in terms of.
It doesn't matter that much how you label things. It's just much more convenient to call them adjectives than to say there's another category. It's not that big a deal though. If you said there were determiners, adjectives, and adverbs, you had 3 categories of modifier.
Calling this a determiner. But I think it's fine. It's basically.
I don't think there are determiner phrases. So they're not going to come up unless it's a single word, I think. Maybe there are. I don't know. But they don't come to mind.
Basically the same thing. House is this, house is that, right? So it's interesting that adverbs are generally regarded as telling you like where something's happening, but that is basically telling you where something is, partially, but it's regarded as being more of an adjective. So I'm just going to look at some of the other thought discussion. So I went off on a huge tangent about this one issue. I mean, I think it's good to get it straight, but there's a lot more categories. So that can be used as a relative pronoun to connect 2 clauses. In this case, that can also be substituted by who or which. Examples, that equals which. How about the apples that the man was selling? Right. And it's also worth noting that in each of these cases, like it is connecting the 2 clauses. That's true, but it's also serving a role within the clause. So in other words, so Tom bought the apples, and then the man was selling that. Peter invited the boy that was new in class, so Peter invited the boy, and no, wait a second. Oh, it's I got thrown off because there's something more natural to me about reading this sort of thing where when this is serving as the object sometimes than as the subject. But right, it's just Peter invited the boy that was new, and that is standing for boy here. So it's like boy was new. Peter invited the boy was new, or the boy if you prefer. So I think that makes sense. I'll just use their example. Right, I just said you could read this rewritten clause with apples as sort of, so we started out with that the man was selling and I rewrote it as the man was selling that, and you could also, if you want to make everything really explicit, say the man was selling the apples. So Tom bought the apples, the man was selling the apples. And like you see why we use a relative what we use stuff like.
Youngness is countable in terms of years of age, but it's also measurable. Like, you can view it as a continuum. Like, he's younger than him. Doesn't have to be involved counting. And bigness is countable if you define a metric for counting it. Like, anything where you're dealing with a continuum, you can define units and then count them if you want to. I don't think there's a hard distinction there.
Relative pronouns, because like Tom plucked apples, period. The man was selling the apples, period. That gets a little tedious. So this is more elegant, but it's less clear. And so if you want to understand the details of the structure, you have to unpack a bit of the complexity to make it more clear. I said it serves as a subject. I figure if I'm going to use, I shouldn't use the pronoun there. I should use the actual word. So I think this is fine. I have no objections to this. So that, and a clause is an object stuff, I think is mistaken. And the reason is that I think, so basically what they say is, I just wanted to bring up the right Eliot example. So basically what the thought code people say is that can be used in clauses that act as the object of the verb, meaning this whole thing is acting as the object of the verb, whereas Eliot analyzes this as that is being like a forward reference, and that is serving as an object of like, this part of the sentence, but the second part of the sentence is its own separate clause that is just being referred to by that. And I had some thoughts about maybe
Yeah, and keep in mind, I got that idea straight out of the dictionary, in particular the original Webster's dictionary. I think that the word that like got used more and more over time is my guess, and we use it to like subordinate nested clauses a lot. But I still found the original, when it can serve as a pronoun, I think it makes sense to read it as a pronoun. Like, I avoid nested clauses when they're not necessary, and I think a pronoun is like a simpler thing that we should just stick with when it works. So this is what Webster's used to say. And they're specifically correcting the view that it's a conjunction, which they think is a misconception. And like as a general rule of thumb, well, maybe only partially, but in a lot of ways, like old grammar resources are better than new ones. There's been some corruption in Peikoff's opinion, in my opinion, and the opinion of like quite a few reasonable people, I think. But I think that this being an older view is actually like important and good.
I'm a little bothered by the fact that the idea of a pronoun referring to a whole clause, as opposed to, because that's what Eliot.
Oh. Wait, pronouns do refer, well, the word that can refer to whole clauses. The word that can refer to like whole paragraphs. It can just refer to like any size thing, pretty much.
Says that
Whether you want to call it a pronoun or not is up to you. Like that, the terminology doesn't matter, but it can stand for bigger things than just a noun. And I saw it called a prose sentence. It might have been here. Yeah, see, this. That can represent a sentence or part of a sentence, and even a series of sentences. So it's not strictly a pronoun, but you could call it a prose sentence or something like that. Like you could call it something else. That's what they're saying. Makes total sense. And they have examples. Like this example makes sense. When Moses heard that, and then the that is referring to everything Aaron had told him. Which I have no idea what that is because I don't read the Bible, but apparently Aaron had just told Moses a bunch of stuff in Leviticus. And yeah, it also says that sometimes in this use precedes the sentence or clause to which it refers. So it can be a forward reference, very explicit. It's allowed to do that.
that the word that refers to the whole clause, school is boring, not to a single word, and I'm a little troubled by that, but I'm just sort of tabling that for now and think about it more. And I just say that my little notes here, that thought code miscategorizes.
I think that they have that in modern dictionaries, the part where that can refer to like more than a word. Oh, look. The dictionary says that's his wife over there is a pronoun usage, not a determiner, contrary to those stupid websites. They have this example right here where it's that is his wife. It's clearly in a noun rule, not an adjective or determiner rule. Okay, so here where you say, what are we going to do about that? The word that here could easily be referring to a sentence or paragraph. So it's pretty clear that the word that can refer to like a large group of stuff. It doesn't have to be like one noun. Oh, the dictionary bugged out again and won't scroll down. Whatever.
These three examples as being cases where that is used in clauses that act as the object of a verb, whereas really what's going on is the same phenomenon that Elliot talks about, where it's like, she would be late for class. Jennifer hinted that. He needed to hurry up. Doug knew that. We finished our homework. The teacher suggested that. So I think that's right. The other thing, I had thought that one way of thinking about this stuff is instead of thinking about like a semicolon or thinking about an implied and, you can think about it in terms of like this followed by colon, like Jennifer hinted this, colon, she would be late for class. Doug knew this, colon, he needed to hurry up. The teacher suggested this, colon, we finished our homework. That's just another way of thinking about it. And so then the last thing I'm going to cover, so this is talking about that in a clause as a complement to a noun or adjective. And initially I thought this was wrong, but I think it might be saying a similar thing to what Elliot talks about, just in a different way. So Elliot has this example. That relating.
Well, one bad sign here is that they spelled complement wrong. So that's an indication of lack of familiarity with what they're talking about. Like, I've gotten pretty used to spelling complement with an E, just from writing about grammar stuff. Like, I spelled it wrong a bunch of times at the beginning, and then I corrected them, and, you know, got used to how to spell it. So these people seem like newbies.
Nested adverb clause. I'm happy that you got sushi. I see that's what that's relating the adverb clause. Now this says, the stock post stuff says, that can be used in a clause following a noun or an adjective as a complement. The complement helps give additional information about the noun or adjective. It answers the question why. Now, if something is giving additional information about an adjective, it's an adverb, which is what Elliot calls this clause. So I think that could be fine. I think this particular example maps up really well. Peter's upset that his sister wants to drop out of school. I'm happy that you got sushi. Peter's upset, I'm happy. Peter's upset that, I'm happy that.
Yeah, it's telling you about what he's upset about. It's a modifier on upset. Or it's like being a Popperian and talking about falsificationism.
So this is pretty close. And I think this might be saying the same thing. So.
Or being an objectivist and saying Randian.
That is a few items of discussion of that. I went off on a big tangent about this determiner example I didn't like, trying to relate it to the demi-pronoun stuff. This is the example I didn't like. So maybe next time I'll do some more discussion of that.
Alright, I'm out. Later.